What's up YouTube? Welcome back. Hope you're having a good week. You might have noticed that I have a couple of videos titled Rebel Moon Deep Dive Parts 1 and 2. Those videos cover the Rebel Moon companion guide that is online on Netflix, and I have been covering them in parts or episodes because the guide is a little long to cover in one video. Now, if you're not familiar, this Rebel Moon companion guide was developed by Netflix, Zack, all of them, to kind of give us a deeper dive and an inside look into some of the details, characters, worlds, and different technologies and features that we see in the film. It's a really beautifully designed guide, and if you haven't looked through it, I highly recommend it. But in the meantime, if you're new, thank you for checking out the channel, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. So far, we have covered the Mother World section of the guide and Velt. Alright, so if you want to get caught up on those, head over to the channel, watch parts 1 and 2. Today in part 3, we're going to cover Neu-Wodi. So this is going to be like where we see Tarek introduced in the movie and some of the different creatures, elements, and other characters associated with this part of the universe. And just a reminder, the companion guide does have potential spoilers because we haven't seen the director's cut yet. Not major big events, but some details, So picking up with the planet Neu-Wodi, it is described as a sprawling arid landscape home to scattered settlements and ranches. Here where we see Tarek introduced in the film, and we know he is there repaying a debt. So under Tarek's profile, we see the first of Korra and Gunner's recruits in their fight against Motherworld. Tarek is an indentured servant currently indebted to the hard Neu-Wodi taskmaster Hickman, but he's much more than he seems. Tarek was once another planet's beloved prince, and we get a little hint of that at the end when Admiral Noble is confronting the team after that plot twist, and he knows who he is, and he says that, he describes him as a prince. So really interesting to learn more about his backstory as well. But his home world is Samandrai, where he ruled as crown prince. His debt, according to Hickman, Tarek owes a debt of 300,000 dirhams for crimes against Motherworld. So obviously that's why he is one of the wanted rebels that Admiral Noble is seeking. Hickman, played by Ray Porter, so nice to see him in a Zack movie again, a rancher turned labor camp warden who profits from Tarek's debt. The greedy Hickman strikes a bargain to set Tarek free from Neu-Wodi if he can break the wild and dangerous Bennu, a giant griffin-like creature in Hickman's possession. The dirhams, which is the currency that Hickman refers to when he names how much, when he kind of names the debt that Tarek owes, it is the coin of the realm, although there are plenty of less above-board techniques for paying off an associate with smuggled black market resources. Now, the Bennu that Tarek has to prove that he can ride is also from his world. So Hickman won this majestic creature in a game of chance on Samandrai. Unbeknownst to him, Tarek wears a pendant bearing the symbol of a Bennu, the sigil of his royal house. So Zack talked a little bit about this, and sprinkled throughout our audio clips that Zack kind of goes into some more detail about certain parts of the guide, but I'm not playing them in the video for sake of time, but you can listen to them if you read through the guide. This creature obviously is from Tarek's homeworld, so he's a lot more familiar with them, and that's why he's able to kind of tame the creature. And we see when Tarek is interacting with it and trying to tame it, he's speaking to it in his mother tongue, saying things that they kind of, I think, both relate to. They're both in bondage, and he carries some guilt. We don't know exactly for what yet. Since that section wasn't very long, we'll go ahead and move on to the section Daggus. Daggus is an industrial cobalt mining planet with a barren surface, and this one looked very different from the other worlds we had seen prior to. This is when they go to recruit Nemesis. At this point in the movie, I do feel like there's going to be a lot more in the director's cut, because when they went to recruit Nemesis on this planet, it seemed like there was something missing there, because all of a sudden they were just with her in this elevator. And I think in the director's cut, we'll probably see more before we get to that point in the film. Inhabitants are described as a truly intergalactic place where the displaced and desperate have come from across the galaxy, seeking work in the massive cobalt mines below the city. Unable to support life without massive importation of resources, Daggus is utterly dependent on Motherworld, so the corporations that govern it turned a blind eye to the pillaging of their planet in exchange for a small share of the profit and the continued indifference of armies of the realm. So since they are completely reliant on the Motherworld, they really are not protecting the citizens on this planet, because they need that profit from the mother world. You know, they're in exchange, they give them some of their resources that they mine, and they kind of just turn a blind eye to what happens on the planet. And we see it's very like polluted and just extremely industrial looking. It looks very different from the other planets that we saw before this section, or before this part in the movie. There we have Nemesis. I cannot wait to see more of her. Her character profile describes her as a master swordswoman whose arms have been severed at the elbow and replaced with a pair of mechanized prosthetics, gauntlets that allow her to wield molten hot swords with unmatched speed and skill. The ancestral swords forged from oracle steel burn with the vengeful fire of her homeworld. Nemesis hails from the rural fishing village of Beoi. Beoi, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Her past is described as she has no love for the Imperium. The forces of Motherworld were responsible for the death of her family. And I think in part 2, the Scargiver, we're going to see a lot more of all of their backstories and kind of why they each have their own different issue with the Motherworld. Her training, Nemesis hails from a culture of once great warriors who lost their combat skills following generations of peace. After Imperium armies destroyed her village, Nemesis picked up the mantle of her ancestors, binding herself to a path of revenge. We see a diagram of her swords. I can't wait to see her use them more. In addition to the sword, she also has these gauntlets, which, like it says, she has kind of replaced part of her arm with in order to be able to wield these swords. Like her swords, Nemesis' mechanized gauntlets are forged from oracle steel, a sympathetic metal with a close bond to the people and history of her homeworld. Once bound to the weapons, she and the artifacts became inseparable. The knowledge of the old ways is awakened in her blood, making her the swordmaster that fate doomed her to become. Vengeance would be her only path out of grief. So we see she has a very deep history, deep story. When Admiral Noble is confronting the team at the end, and he describes her and what she has done, that she took out like 16 or however many he says Imperium soldiers and their guards. She's obviously become known for what she's been doing against the Motherworld, and maybe that's probably why Kai says, you know, I figure with your reputation you could be of help to us. And so we'll get more of that, I feel like, in the director's cut and in part 2. Now this is also where we see the character Harmata, played by Jenna Malone. This particular creature, described here as Harmata, one of the last of the Ogomu, is an enormous spider, one of a kind that were once plentiful in the underworld of Daggus. Poisoned by the relentless mining of her home, the toxic environment has made her offspring unviable. We hear her talking about that with Nemesis, when Nemesis is telling her to let go, to release the child, and, you know, she's talking about, what about my children, and, you know, they're being poisoned and all of this. This is why, because they're constantly mining in this planet, and it's not allowing her offspring to be viable. So she's kind of taking revenge by taking other people's children. Alright, so again, I cannot wait to see the director's cut of part 1 and part 2 coming in April. I'm looking forward to all of it. We'll leave off there for part 3 of our deep dive, covering the Rebel Moon Companion Guide. Last 3 sections cover Pollux, Sharan, and Gondival. So depending on how long those sections are, like in this video we were able to cover 2 sections of the guide. Velt and the Motherworld were a little bit longer, so they each have their own video. But depending on how long those sections take to cover in the video, I either get through 1 or 2 of them at a time. So make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so that way you can stay updated with these this deep dive series. If you want to catch up on the videos covering Motherworld and Velt, you can find those ones on my channel. But thank you guys for the support. I appreciate all of it. And shout out to any new subscribers. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to check out the short section also. And we'll see you guys soon.